If you are allowed to exchange identities with another person, you experience his life and he enters your life. Who do you most want to exchange your body with? But what if it is your enemy who is exchanging body with you? The male protagonist has recently come up with such a thing. He was originally a serious FBI agent. He looks like this, his enemy looks like this. But now he is forced to exchange identities with his enemy. The matter started 6 years ago. The villain wanted to assassinate the male protagonist. But because the male protagonist was playing a merry-go-round with his son at the time, the villain's bullet shot through the male protagonist's shoulder and accidentally killed the male protagonist's son. The villain formed a deep hatred. For 6 years, the male protagonist has been planning how to capture him, until one time the male protagonist learned of the villain's whereabouts through an informant, and successfully caught the villain's brother on the plane. The villain was also seriously injured and unconscious during the arrest. Not awake. The male protagonist thought it was all over, and he told his wife that the murderer of his son had been caught. For 6 years, he devoted himself to catching the murderer, ignoring his wife and daughter, and he decided to make up for them next. However, things are not that simple. Before being caught, the villain secretly planted a biochemical bomb in Los Angeles. Once the bomb exploded, the entire city would become a hell on earth. The villain was still in a coma, and only his brother knew the location of the bomb, but the police used all means, and the villain's brother refused to open his mouth. A female FBI agent suggested that the male protagonist pretend to be a villain and go to the prison to set up a bomb. Since the male protagonist is the person who knows the villain best, he is the most suitable candidate. In fact, it is to change the villain's face to the male lead's face, and then change it back after completing the task. After some hesitation, the hero accepted the suggestion. Due to the need for confidentiality, only the male lead, the 3 detectives and the doctor who changed the face knew about this matter. The male protagonist told his wife that he was going to perform a task and did not tell his wife the truth. The process of changing the face is to cut off both the male lead and the villain's face, and then exchange the villain's face to the male lead, and the male lead's face is temporarily stored in the culture medium. The operation went smoothly. The male protagonist has the face of the villain, and the doctor installed a chip that can change the vocal cords of the male protagonist, so that his voice sounds exactly the same as the villain. The male protagonist was taken to prison and soon came into contact with the villain's younger brother, and successfully managed to get the location of the bomb out of his mouth. Just when he was about to retreat, he saw himself. What's the situation? The male protagonist looked dumbfounded. It turned out that the villain woke up in the middle of the night. He touched his bloody face. From the doctor's video of the face-changing operation, he learned the whole story. So he caught the doctor and asked him to change the male lead's face to himself. Then he killed the previous doctors and FBI agents, and burned all the materials that could prove the identity of the male protagonist. The identities of the two were completely interchanged now, except for the 2 of them. No one knew the fact that their identities were interchanged. The villain pretended to be the male protagonist and went to his house. He also colluded with his brother to get him to confess, and he personally went to dismantle the bomb. The male lead also saw all this in prison. The villain has become a hero. He didn't have a choice before, but now he wants to be a good person. The villain relies on his knowledge of criminals and can accurately fight criminals every time he goes out of the police. When the White House and his wife called at the same time, he chose to answer his wife's phone first. The villain can handle the relationship with colleagues better and is more popular with colleagues. The villain has integrated into the life of the male protagonist and repaired the husband and wife relationship with the male protagonist's wife. It also makes the father-daughter relationship close with the male protagonist. Even once the villain rescued a daughter who was about to be raped and taught her self-defense skills. The villain pretending to be the male protagonist is out there like a fish in water and in the spring breeze. The male protagonist with the face of the villain in the prison was extremely painful. Finally one day, he seized the opportunity to escape from prison, but all the insiders had been wiped out, and no one knew his identity. His wife and daughter didn't believe him, and his colleagues wanted to hunt him down. He had to go to the brother of the villain's girlfriend for help. At this time, the villain's girlfriend also told the male protagonist the truth. It turned out that the little boy next to his girlfriend was the villain's son. The male protagonist looked at him and remembered his dead son. At the same time, the villain also learned of the male lead's escape from prison, and soon found the male lead. The villain surrounded the male lead with the police, and the male lead put on headphones for the little boy in the rain of bullets. In this shootout, the police can shoot at innocent little boys at will, but the villain's girlfriend protects her son while showing tenderness and strength. The male protagonist and the villain hid on both sides of the double-sided mirror. At the same time, they pointed their guns at the mirror. Inside the mirror was the other's face. The two pulled the trigger, but no one hit anyone. This duel ended with the death of the villain's brother and the escape of the male lead. The villain returned to the office and couldn't hear his boss nagging, so he killed him and disguised him as having a heart attack. The male lead was injured after escaping. He returned to his home and saw his wife, but the wife was terrified. The male protagonist told a lot about his and his wife's past. He said that he and the villain had exchanged faces, and his wife had a hard time believing all of this. The male protagonist said he had blood type O, while the villain had blood type AB. Although it was difficult to accept, the wife secretly collected blood from the villain while he was sleeping at night, and the test result was really AB type. In addition, the male protagonist told an interesting story about him and his wife before, so that the wife believed in the male protagonist. In the end, the male protagonist fought a decisive battle with the villain in the church by the sea. The villain hijacked the male protagonist's daughter, but the male protagonist's daughter used the villain's self-defense skills and stabbed the villain's thigh with a knife. His face was then terminated by the male protagonist, and the male protagonist's identity was also verified. At the end of the film, the male protagonist changed his face, and he also adopted the villain's son. You say that you have to change your face every day. That is a mutual deception between you and the world. So I followed your changes and prepared my smiling face carefully. I can't see the real side of your delicate makeup. You said I can't live without you. I can't argue, I can't tell if I love you like a mirrored look, or love you alone where there is nowhere to dodge, or love you has become an inescapable habit. Life is short, love, hate, and lingering.